Hello and welcome to the JTrain Podcast. It's a Chit Chat Wednesday, and today's guest is Matt Ruby, hilarious comic who has a special that is out right now on YouTube. If you're watching this video, the link to the YouTube special is below. Hit the link, flag it, put it away for a rainy day or a night on the couch. It's a hilarious special. It's called Bolo, and I read it to him, but I'm going to read you the topics that Matt Ruby goes after. And he goes after them successfully with laughs. Cancel culture, social media liars, autism, incels, standards for women, freezing eggs, land acknowledgments, crowd work, algorithms, marriage, Judaism, genders, reality love shows, mushrooms, racism, lesbians, October 7th, Kanye. These are all topics that could enrage, but also it's exciting to watch someone go for the bit, and he does it. So it's a great special. You're going to enjoy it. This conversation with Matt, we go over all the topics he goes over, and then we have a conversation about mushrooms. I've never done them. Matt Ruby talks about mushrooms in his special. He is, I don't want to put this on him as a mushroom guy, but he is someone who is has more experience than I do with the mushroom world. So I ask him about it. We have a nice conversation about this. Fun convo. I've known Matt Ruby for years. He's great, funny, hilarious. Go follow. Enjoy today's episode. Boom. Welcome to the new JTrain Podcast. Hello and welcome to the JTrain Podcast. It's JTrain Jared Freid coming live from the West Village of Manhattan. That's right. Every Wednesday is a Chit Chat Wednesday where I sit down with a friend, a comedian, an expert, and lucky for you, we have all three today. Friend, comedian, expert comedian with a new special that is out right now, and you can literally click on the description. In the description of this episode, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube, it is right there waiting for you to add to your queue and put on for a date night. I just watched it. It is fantastic. It is called Bolo. Matt Ruby, thank you for coming on the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Great to be here. I'm doing well.
Love the special. It's great.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I just watched the whole thing. It's funny. Everything hits. You feel like you're in the room. I think that's like where did you tape it?
It was at New York Comedy Club, the Gramercy location, but we brought in like a backdrop to make it look a little different, so it's not brick wally and the usual vibe. So I think that helped a lot.
I think it did. It was nightclub-y. It felt like it was from, it felt like I wish people could smoke cigarettes.
Totally. Well, I always think that's the kind of rooms I perform in. And so I always think when you're taping a special, like for me anyway, it's like I like to perform in the kind of spaces I normally do as opposed to try to blow it up or make it seem too fancy or something like that. So for me, it was nice to just sort of capture what I do in the environment where I usually do it.
I wish more comics would do that. Like I watch some specials and I'm like, this was dinner party. This isn't stadium. Right. Who's the comedian recently? They were like, I don't play over 1,300 seats. It's like an old
Attell
school.
Maybe?
Attell definitely, it doesn't seem like he would like that at all, but I don't want to speak.
Yeah, I always think of like
Attell.
But I think of like Attell or Todd Barry as people who they're supposed to be in a nightclub.
Well, Todd Barry can't sell the tickets, so I
well, there's that too. But you know what I'm saying? Just vibe.
Shout out to Todd who ripped me on Threads today.
Oh shit! He's coming after you on Threads.
He came back. He goes, "I did a tweet. I did a thread, and I follow nobody on Threads. It's just like it's like it is like I just opened the account and I was like, here we go, and it's very Threads is very algorithm-y.
It feels like a black hole. Like you can get 1,000 shares, but you'll get one new follower from it. It's
very weird on Threads, and also you'll get it's trying to be TikTok with its algorithm. You can tell they're it feels like, and we're gonna get into this because you talk about the algorithm on your special.
I do.
It feels like they were like, okay, let's try and do our TikTok thing here before we put it on Instagram. Because sometimes I'll just get a flavor of Threads. It'll just be all comedians talking about how awful comedy is. And then it's the next day it'll be all dating talking about how awful dating is. It shows you what
No,
algorithms I end up on.
I get similar. Yeah, I think they know from Instagram who you follow or what you're into, and so then they're just like, "Hey, how about this? You probably like this. You probably like this." And sometimes you're like, "Yeah, I do," and other times you're like, "You don't know me at all. What are we doing here?" You know.
And sometimes it's like I like a little bit of that. Like I like some cheese and crackers. I don't want it to be the dinner. You know.
Well, they make you go up to some strange area to just see posts from people you actually follow, and then everything else is.
What do you mean?
There's the for you,
yes,
and then there's the following, and so like the people that you actually follow, you have to go somewhere and click a button in order to just see stuff from them, and otherwise you're just a slave to whatever the algorithm's throwing at you. So the whole thing is a little cheesy.
Well, this is my problem. I don't have any. I'm not following anyone there. So like I only have the for you garbage, and
I mean, honestly, it sounds healthy. That sounds great. Keep it up.
It feels unhealthy because
don't do it.
On Twitter, I have the for you and the follow, and like anytime I end up on the for you, I'm like, ugh, why is my day worse? You know, like
I need to take a shower. On Twitter, it's like, hey, we found this thing you'll probably hate. Are you happy now?
Right. There's like no positivity on that for you page. It is messing with my brain in a certain way. So Todd Barry responded. I did a tweet. I did it like a threads. I have to like be, I don't even know what they are anymore. It was like, I feel like as I get older, I'm like a chef at a restaurant that keeps losing meals, that keeps running out of meals. It's like, I'll be on the toilet at 3 a.m. and it's like, we got to 86 the hummus, like that was like the thread, whatever. It's stupid.
Okay.
Obviously I was shitting from hummus at the time, just like, I guess this is
inspiration. Yeah, you're speaking your truth.
This is it. Todd Barry's like, you better 86 this thread. And then it's like the most Todd Barry response. And then his gets like 1,000 likes. I was like, I guess I won't do a TikTok about this as well. He's
a masterful troll on social media, isn't he?
That's his move. I guess that's another thing of it. It's like, well, people follow him to like troll people. So like, I don't know. So hold on. So you taped it at the club. It looks great. It does look like there should be cigarette smoke going on. I wish you could have done that. It's a very good special.
Ice at least, right?
Right.
Yeah,
something. Let me go over the topics you go over, because I think everyone should watch the special, because I mean, you go through, I don't think I've watched a special that does every topic that is going on right now. Okay. Cancel culture, social media liars, autism, incels, female standards, eggs freezing, land acknowledgements. Like I was like, I guess that's a topic I've been run across so far. Crowd work, marriage, Judaism, genders, reality love shows, mushrooms, racism, lesbians. October 7th, you get into that. Kanye, travel, and dogs and white women. And there's a part in the special where you're like, you got to do crowd work these days.
You got to do it.
You got to, but you're like, but also you have every hashtag. This is gonna, this is clip ready. Was my thinking.
I'm trying to do whatever the algorithm wants me to, Jared. I just tell me, algorithm, what do you need from me? I'll give it to you. I'll sacrifice whatever babies to your volcano you require.
It really is religion-like, yeah.
It's what's going on in my mind. I'm probably like a too online kind of guy, so maybe that's part of what you're seeing in my output. But also, I'm just like, where my comedy tends to come from is wherever I think something's bullshit that people aren't saying the truth about it. And so like all those topics, I think it's usually like, I don't know, I think we're having a bullshit conversation. Here's what I really think is going on. And that's where the joke idea starts from. And then I try to make it funny somehow.
Right. That was what I was getting from it. Because I was watching, I was like, this is like it's like the owning the libs is not what this is, but it's like what they're trying to like. You're doing a smart version of like, I'm with you, but like, can we talk honestly about what I'm with you on? And
that's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Right. And because I'm watching this and I do think of like, you mentioned Andrew Tate and in the special and you're like,
right.
Those, it's almost like I use this example a lot. Like I was like, the way you're coming at this, like, hey, I'm with you. I'm liberal. I'm on your side, but I'm not on your side all the way. Like, can we at least like have some reasonability? And it's like, that's almost like, how do you stand out? It's like there's a sweet and low version of that, and then there's like a sugar. Like, I'm like what you're doing is the nuanced, fun way where everyone in the room can laugh, even if like agree, disagree, or anywhere in between.
Right.
But then it's like we see these people on a nightly basis. You see these things online where it's like, no, someone's like, that's not enough for me. I got to go into like go fuck yourself mode. It's like. And that's not, and then that doesn't even, that goes into the land of not funny,
Yeah. Yeah. I think for comedy, like the worst thing is like if you know exactly what a person's going to say before they even say it. If I know exactly what your take is going to be, like to me, great comedy, like this part of why Carlin was so great is like you didn't actually know where he was going to go. People on both sides would like point to him as their champion on different stuff. And I think that's like the kind of comedy ideal. And then, I feel like, you have the people who are like bitching about like Wokistan. And like, okay, I kind of get that, but like the anti-Wokistan people seem equally crazy to me. Like you're both just like two sides of the same coin. You're way too online. You're tribalist in this, sort of reductive way. Like the truth is usually, like you said, is like nuanced. Shit's complicated. Sometimes the people on your side are full of shit, and you got to be willing to acknowledge that. Otherwise, you just come off like some dipshit who's like just blindly like adhering to like one side or the other. So I'm trying to avoid just always being like, oh, I know exactly where this guy's going on this. I'm like, hey, here's what I think is bullshit on this side, but then also I think on that other side they're kind of full of shit too, and just try to get to some truth that way.
Do you have the same feeling I do, where this is happening conversationally now? Like we saw it in comedy, I think comedy, because it's like instant reaction and it's jump on stage and do your 10 minutes. Like it seems that stand up is always early to like what things are happening or how people are even speaking.
Totally.
Like we see we were seeing the first version of like, clapter comedy.
Yep.
And then now I'm like seeing it in my conversations where I'm like, I know where you're going with this opinion. Like, there's no
especially
punchline.
online. But yeah, I think to me the go-to example for what you're talking about is like Biden being like too old. Like every comedian had some bit about it like 3 years ago, and it was killing in every comedy club across the country, regardless of what side people were on. And we all knew like this dude's too old, and everyone in this country thinks he's too old. And meanwhile, like the politicians or the people whoever's running the country actually is like, no, he's doing fine. Don't worry about it. And like we all knew.
That's just the stupid clown talking, it's, right.
But we're not, well, okay, yes, we are stupid clowns, but the audience is not stupid clowns. And if enough of them all agree, there's some truth there. Like they might individually be stupid clowns, but as a group, audiences possess a lot of wisdom and can see the truth. It's like,
no, you're right,
like
because
guessing the amount of jelly beans in the jar. This is like if you get a crowd of like hundreds of people to guess the amount of jelly beans in a jar, the average of their guesses will almost always be exactly right. So individually, those people might, it's the wisdom of crowds. There's a whole book about it. Individually, those people might all be idiots, and some of them will be way too low and some of them will be way too high. But you get enough of them together, they're going to get the answer right.
That's interesting, and that is a good parallel for like stand-up comedy and like testing out bits. Like
totally.
I was on a date recently. The woman was like, "Do you have to tailor?" You get this question, I'm sure, where it's like, "Do you have to tailor your show based on where you go?" And I was like, "No, I don't think. I think that's like that's a false premise served to people by bad comedians. Like this idea that you like, I was in Phoenix and I was in Portland. I can't think of two more different West Coast areas than Abercrombie and Fitch Phoenix and like Stussy Phoenix and like, Independent Bookstore Portland, and same bits, same laughs. It actually, the set got better because of the two. I put we're crowdsourcing, and like, listen, I will talk about, I don't like go shy away from stuff, but I have more enjoyment, like, I recently haven't been talking about these subjects, but like I've been more talking about like my parents a lot, which has been fun for me to do. But like, the idea, I get the question in a different way where it's like, well, if there are no Jews there, do they get it? I'm like, Seinfeld was the most popular show in the world.
Right.
people get it on their own levels. I'm not.
Well,
You know,
I think what you're getting at too is what people really want the most is for you to be yourself or be who you really are, who you really want to be. Like the last thing you might think that you're going to please everyone if you change your act state by state, depending on the audience. But a lot of people just smell the bullshit, be like,
right.
who is this guy for real? I feel like he's just, so I think that's a lame way to do it. And then, yeah, I think your crowdsourcing point is a good one. It's like, how people will say, oh, it's funny because it's true. Like I usually think it's the opposite of like a room full of people in like New York and Alabama and Chicago and California are all laughing at the same joke. Then I think the point is true there. It's true because it's funny.
Right.
It's like if they're all laughing repeatedly in different environments, then what you're saying has some truth to it.
Right. I mean, and that's the fun of doing stand up. Like I think like, you bring up the algorithm and like crowd work and like I don't think a lot of comedians like have fun doing a full crowd work set. Like I think if you really got into this, like my dad, I tried this new thing and my dad is like the worst critic. He's like if he doesn't like it, he'll let you know that bombed. I'm like, I know, I was there. I felt the bomb worse than you, and I did this story and it's a true story about my dad and I growing up about Larry Bird. And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, man, how am I going to get people to understand this Larry Bird thing? Like I it's just such a stupid, but it's a story that's like legitimately haunted me my whole life. And my dad's like, the Larry Bird thing, you ain't going to ever make it happen. It's never going to happen. He literally says
like,
it's never
I'll
gonna...
show you, Dad. Then it was written in stone. You had to do it.
Right. And it's also that is part of the story. You're now adding to the story. Like, this is all about, like, how I disappointed you with Larry Bird. And now you're like, you're never going to make the story work. And
well, I mean, from what you said, it's like that I was haunted by it. Like right there, it's like, okay, there's juice to this somehow.
Has
I feel
to
like
be.
it's like if I'm haunted by this and it's stuck with me my whole life and I tell everyone I ever meet about it, it's like, well, then keep hacking away at it because something is there that's like inside of you that wants to come out. And I think so much of like good comedy is audiences sensing that, like, oh, this guy just has to say this.
Right. And I used to think like when I first started, it was like I just want to like tell the story that got a laugh with friends, and now I'm like more like I gotta tell this thing that has really fucking bothered me. Like
the thing that only you could talk about or say.
Right.
I think that's part of it too.
So I have questions from the special, but I want people to go watch it. It's fantastic. It's called Bolo. It's so funny. I mean, literally laughs every 10 seconds. That's the goal. You're going to have a great time on the couch. Did you have, before we get into it, we have a sponsor, Every Plate. If it's time for a change in how you're treating your body, make things easier on yourself with Every Plate. They send easy recipes straight to your door, so you get to skip the grocery store and just get cooking. Choose from over 30 rotating menu options every week, like spicy bean and pepper quesadilla and loaded baked potato chowder. Their new Smart Swap recipes even let you switch out flour tortillas for lettuce wraps, white rice for lettuce, and potatoes for sweet potatoes to make better for you meals. Here's the rub. I think a meal kit is good for you mentally and physically. Mentally, because there's so few things you get to start and finish. This is a DIY project. This is as meditative as doing Legos to me. 2, if you want to be healthier, you have 2 problems. You're not a culinary expert, you're not creative enough, and also you don't know how to shop for yourself. You do the wrong portions. I'm the same way. I'm only pointing at you because 3 fingers are pointing back at me. So what this is going to do, what Every Plate's going to do, is going to give you creative options that keep you on it longer, and you're not going to be wasting all this food or eating too much. So, and here's what Every Plate does. So, like, what is their thing? They do meal kits that are cheaper. They're going to give you a better bargain. So, skip the store and enjoy homemade meals that cost less than buying groceries. Set wholesome habits this year when you sign up for America's Best Value Meal Kit. Get started with 50% off your first box and free month at Planet Fitness. So they're really helping you in all ways. So 50% off your first box and a free month at Planet Fitness with code JTrainPF. at everyplate.com/podcast. Everyplate offer valid with auto-renewing subscription. Planet Fitness offer valid with $1 down. Due at Black Card membership sign-up. Additional restrictions apply. See everyplate.com/podcast for details. That's 50% off your first box and 1 month free at Planet Fitness with code JTrainPF at everyplate.com/podcast. Here with Matt Ruby. Everyone go follow at Matt Ruby on all platforms, as well as the special that is on YouTube right now. It is called Bolo. The description of this episode literally has it waiting there for you. Okay, here's my question. When you're doing big topics like this, I read them all off. The one that we're going to reference is you go October 7th. You say I'm going to do, and basically I'm going to do jokes about October 7th. And
right.
You literally hear a woman go, no. So,
yeah,
which
the crowd is well microphoned.
Yes, I laughed at her go, I thought it was a great joke, as great a joke, okay, you've set up the difficulty rating. I'm going to make fun of a difficult subject, and then a woman yells no, which I don't even know if you know that. I heard it.
I think I did sense it, yeah.
And
because I think I even like, yeah, we're doing it, so
right.
It's going to happen. I don't know if I said that, but that's what I was thinking.
I think you did say that, and you pull it off. It's very funny. Do you have a story of anyone like hearing, because we have that happen. You'll say a premise and no, I don't even want it. Go no further. Did that happen with this stuff? Was there? Have you had that?
It's usually not like an audible, like someone yelling something out, but you can definitely feel like the crowd tighten up. I mean, not always. Sometimes a fun crowd is like, yeah, get wild, but like there's plenty of times where you can just feel like, oh, like butt cheeks are clenching and people are like, I don't know about this, but. It's like usually it's not like my opener, so you hopefully you have built up some amount of trust with them that they are confident that you know what you're doing. And then, also like to me, that tension's kind of fun. If you can kind of dance with that tension a little bit and bring them to a place that they're like, I'm not sure about this, but then the joke pays off, then I think you could frequently you get an even bigger laugh. And you kind of like, to me, it's probably like what's amazing about comedy. We're like, yeah, we can go on this ride. We can be a little bit edgy. And then in the end, we're all going to feel happy about it. And there's no HR department. It's a comedy club. If we can't do this here, where are we going to do it? And, as a Jew, I'm also like, I don't want to not talk about stuff, because it's like hot. But to me, like the thing I always feel like is weird is like I just can't talk about that at all. Like if it's something I'm talking about in my life normally with people, like I just want to be able to represent that on stage. And I also, as a Jew, I don't want to be like, I'm too afraid to talk about Jew stuff. Like I'm like, fuck that. It's like now more than ever, even if it's jokes about Jews or whatever else, it's like, let's still be out there and talking and be present and be like normal people, like about, I don't want to be cowering in fear. I feel like that's something I'm sensing from like Jews in my life, is that so many of them are on this timeline where they're just being fed all this awful stuff. Right. And like they're afraid of being Jewish right now. I'm like, no, just go out there, own it, talk about it, be something that everyone's like, oh yeah, that was funny, and we can talk about this, and it's, none of this is the end of the world. We're lucky to be alive. We're lucky to not be in the middle of stuff, and like let's as much as the people who are actually like literally in the middle of it. Right. And like I don't know, I always think Jews, like a huge part of our culture is like, okay, there's pain and suffering and bad shit happening, but like let's make a joke out of it. How else are we going to get through it?
There's
like,
discussion
the most
too.
Jewish thing you can do.
Right. Yeah. Well, I always say stand-up comedy is like a lot of Jews consider it their sport. When you go,
it's like the most beautiful way to complain. And if there was complaining Olympics, the Jews would be like really favorites in almost every event.
Right. And you talk about complaining. There's a joke about complaining about someone else's home, and like. And I was like, I felt it. Like I knew that person that you were referencing. Like, and that again, that
grandma.
goes back.
You knew my grandma?
Right. I knew your grandma. Like the way the word you used. I was like, I knew. I felt it felt very lived in, and that goes back to like levels and when jokes work for one person in a different way than it works for another person. And again, when you do a subject like that, there is like it kind of feels like you're on a whitewater raft, and then you like get over the hump and you're laughing. Because
great way to put it. Yeah.
You got over it, you made it, so
And you should believe in the joke. At first,
Right.
you're always trying stuff out. You might have to take a few risks, but like when you're putting out a special, like every joke I'm telling on there and putting out, like I believe it. And so like I think
Right.
that's also, we're experienced enough as comics and do enough shows that you're like, hey, you can react how you want to this joke, but if I believe in it, then I'm gonna sell it, and like and also if it's like continually bombs, I'll stop doing it. I'm not like
Right. I'm
I'm
not
not
like
gonna
here to
torture
make a
them.
point, right?
Yeah,
Like torture me. I'm not going to torture myself, but
right.
it's funny you say that because I was like, the bit made sense for you. Like, I know that you are, you're abutting the concert community in your life. Like, like I know that festivals because I also know that you like hallucinogenics. You did a whole
Right.
special while on a hallucinogenic. If you go
Right.
to Matt Ruby's YouTube page, so like there was no lie in like I'm just doing this bit just to get on an algorithm. Like like when I see
No, no.
stuff that's like on those subjects, like that's like the stuff that like rings bullshit to me. I'm like, is it from your perspective?
Yeah.
Or is this
Yeah.
the perspective that just is a huge hammer to like
Totally.
lay down on it? It's and it's something that like I think that takes time to get to. Like I noticed that in my own stuff. Like, talking about like Larry Bird, like I never would have done that. I would never would have been brave enough, or thoughtful enough to do that, a couple years in. Like I just,
Totally. Yeah,
so
I feel that. Yeah, to like, there's plenty of newer comics who probably want to be edgy and are going to talk about like offensive Subjects, and it's just going to be like, But yeah, these are a lot of those jokes I probably couldn't have done, when I was like 5 years in or something. But now I
right.
feel like, it's almost one of the, I don't want to say it's your duty as a veteran comic, but it's like this is the part of the good thing about having done it for 17 years or whatever it is now. Like you have this data set internally of like, here's how to do this, and here's what I want to say, and here's what I can make funny, and like
Right.
I'm not gonna, it's like, I don't know, why else get into this, and if you're not gonna say what you want to say, to me it's
I
like the whole point of doing stand up is like
I
like the amount
know.
of suffering we go through to get here, and then to be like, well, I shouldn't say this because the algorithm won't like it. Is like, come on.
I know. I'm wondering where this all goes because, like, I'm sure you feel similarly. Like, we're just seeing a lot of marketing majors get into comedy instead of being marketing, VPs.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I feel like every comedian is like half of the time is running a tech startup for
right.
yourself.
I mean, I feel that way myself, and I'm like,
Yeah,
and I'm like, if I didn't go on stage this week, was I just a marketing chief?
I hear you.
Like,
Or if I just stared at a screen all day, like I'm like I left a tech job to get into comedy because I didn't want to stare at a screen all day.
right.
And then like, how did this happen? The screens followed me wherever I went. But yeah, I don't have a good answer for it. I think, it's like one of those, it's also great. We don't have to go through like industry gatekeepers and all that bullshit like we used to. So there's obviously advantages to it, but like, yeah, I do feel like I'm running like some branding. I'm running a failing branding agency and my one client is myself.
Okay, so you mentioned mushrooms. I have never done mushrooms.
What? This
I
is
know.
outrageous to
I
me.
know. And so this is really what I wanted to talk to you about. Now, I'll give
I will do
you.
them with you sometime if you want.
I'm down for mushrooms. I'm down to do them with you. Here's my fear. There's two things I fear, and I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
And the sale of it actually will sell me because I was on a date. I'll tell you the story first.
Okay.
I'm on a date with a girl, and we're sitting at the bar, and she's like, "I'm not drinking," and I'm like, "That's totally fine. I am a drinker, so I'm like, I'm gonna drink, but like, you do you. It's like
Sure.
totally cool. There's no pressure here." She's like, "I do mushrooms now instead of drinking." And I
Okay.
go, "Well, what's the reason?" She's like, "No calories." It was the most Jewish woman reason
Nice.
to do mushrooms. She's like, "It's no calories, same buzz." And I'm like, "Is that for real?" Like, and they were basically the 1-for-1 swap of mushrooms for like a glass of wine, whatever. Is that the truth? Because here's my fear.
Okay.
That's my story. My fear was that mushrooms was similar to weed, where I wouldn't feel control of my mind, and that's where I don't like. That's why I don't smoke marijuana, because I'm like, I don't feel like I have my hand at the wheel as much and with alcohol, like I know where I am. I know,
Sure.
all that stuff. So talk me through this as a
Well,
mushroom
yeah.
guy.
I mean, I think dosing would be the key factor here. Like you can dose yourself properly where you're still like feeling a little buzzy and floaty, but you're in control of everything that you're
Right.
doing. There is a dose that you can hit where you're going to be more out of your head and maybe shouldn't be driving a car or whatever. So like
Okay.
also be aware of that as a possibility. I'm a big fan of start small and wait a half hour, 45 minutes, and then you can up your dosage then as opposed to like just eating the whole bag of shrooms or whatever out of the gate. Like there's
Can you
something to be
lose
said.
track? Can you like? Is it like weed where you're like, I ate the whole brownie and now I'm stuck here, or
I mean, I would
is it
start
harder
off.
than weed?
I mean, again, it goes back to dosing. I don't harder and not harder aren't the words that I would use. It's just like a
Mm.
little more mind expanding and hallucinatory if you take enough of them. And the first time or two you do them, just do them with someone who knows better than you and has
Okay,
done them before. And
a
have a
Sherpa, so
guide.
to speak.
Yeah, yeah, a guide who's going to be like, here, try this now. And then, okay, an hour in, you're not really feeling it to do a little more. Or if you are feeling it, like, hey, I got this. I can get us an Uber or whatever you need kind of thing. And yeah, I do. I mean, if you're comparing like health benefits or which one's worse for your health, I think alcohol is definitely worse as far as like the impact on your body, hangovers, yeah, calories and all that stuff too. But just like I know my body after a night of drinking is like, oh God, what did you do? And after like a night of like taking shrooms, I can wake up the next day and be like, yeah, I feel great. That was fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Doesn't mess with your sleep?
I mean, if you do it like late at night and then try to sleep, maybe. But like, if you do some in the afternoon and like they wear off after, around 3 or 4 hours, and then yeah, you can be normal again.
Is the comp of dosing to alcohol like somewhat true? Do you feel similarly?
Well, I mean, what do you mean? I mean, yeah, you can have a couple drinks and have fun and be fine and be in control, or you could have like
Well,
entire,
that's what I'm saying. Like if you had
case and be throwing up and be,
right,
sloppy as
I'm
hell.
saying if I went to a bar and had two dirty martinis, so
Yeah,
I'm on it now. Like
yeah.
the plane has taken off. What would be is there a
Yeah, I mean, if I
comparison
if I
to
if I was bringing you on board the Shroom Train, like there's like a service where you can order like chocolate bars and they come with
mm,
squares and they'll tell you like 4 squares for a little bit of a trip, 12 squares for like a heroic dose, which is like a full on sort of thing, and probably start you off with a couple squares, see how you're feeling, and then gradually up your dosage. Like for most people who want to toe dip, I think that's like a good approach at first.
mhm.
I will say, like, my personal experience was like I just went all in and did like a huge amount of shrooms with some friends the first time and had like this transcendent experience that was great. So I do think the one thing I'll say is like there's so much emphasis on this microdosing sort of thing where
Yeah,
I have just a little bit instead of drinking or something like that. And I'm fine with that. That's good. Go for that. But there is something amazing and transcendent about doing like a heroic dose of mushrooms and just being out in the woods or somewhere in nature with your friends and like just being in like
this is
staring
the
at your
problem with the shrooms
staring at your
community.
own
You got
shadow.
me out in the woods. This is crazy.
What's wrong with the
This is
woods?
well.
You
This is
love
the
the
problem.
woods. We'll
I'm
go to the
asking
ocean.
you.
We'll take you to the beach. How about is that better?
Beach
We'll
would
go
be
to the
good.
beach. Okay.
I'm a swimmer more than I'm a hiker.
There you go. So
Okay.
whatever natural environment speaks to you. Just like
Have you had
sometimes like the
epiphanies?
yeah, I'm actually working on a new one-man show called the Mushroom Diaries, which is all like I take notes when I do mushrooms, and so it's like
Mm,
based on my mushroom notebooks where I'm doing like a sort of like a guided tour of like the different thoughts that the mushrooms have revealed to me. So yeah, I mean, it's tough, like I think in general, if a big picture thing, it's a lot of like teaches you like how everything is connected, the connectedness of the universe, a sense of empathy and compassion for all living creatures. I think men sometimes need psychedelics to realize things that women know innately. I think a lot of
interesting.
times, like it's the antidote to toxic bro, like manosphere type shit. Is like take some
What
mushrooms
about
and you'll.
what has it taught you that you felt was like a very female?
I mean,
Like
I think probably just sort of like when I just sort of like I can be like kind of cynical and judgmental and like as my default mode, which can be good for like stand-up comedy, but not so great
sure.
for like interpersonal relationships or dating or things like that. And so I think definitely on shrooms, I've had a lot more of like just sort of like empathy and being like, oh, everything's fine. If people are annoying you, look, they're doing their best. Just try to see,
Right.
just sort of like an approach of loving kindness to the world instead of criticism and judgment, which is something
Right.
that I've found helpful for my own brain. It's still a work in progress, but
Sure.
it's not like sometimes the shrooms can be like a flare that kind of lights up the jungle. And at least you see like where you're supposed to be headed, and then you got to go back to your day-to-day life of integration and hacking away at the plants in order to get out of the jungle. But at least you feel like you're headed in the right direction.
Have you dated women who are like not into the shrooms thing, or is that kind of like now part of like what you're looking for is someone to share that with?
I have on occasion. I mean, it's become more popular now, so like I think most people are at least like, oh, I might do like a little bit, but like, yeah, like I think in general, like a lot of people are scared to like really go there with shrooms because they've
You're talking to someone.
bad. Well, like the bad trips, like the bad trip stories are hilarious to me because oh, I had a really bad trip once. So I don't know if I want to. I'm like, let me guess. You were at a music festival. You went there with 18 people who you didn't know that well. Took a dose that you didn't understand, then wound up at some tent where you didn't know where you were, and you just had to sit against the fence for 8 hours. They're always like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Because this is every bad trip story I've ever
Right, that's
heard."
that's
I
literally a
blame you.
bad trip to a concert. Yeah, like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
no mushrooms needed.
This is user error. This is like someone
Right.
who can't figure out how to use their iPhone and they're like, this thing sucks. I'm like, no, you don't
Right.
know how to do it, But
Right.
yeah, so it's not like a deal breaker for me if someone didn't want to do them. And it's not something I do like all the time. It's just nice to have on the menu, I guess. And, I think it's more if someone's really like not okay with me doing them, that might be a problem. If someone's like, tisk tisk, how dare you, this is
Right.
bad and wrong, I'd be like, I don't know, what are you, from 1987, like what are we talking
Well,
about here?
can someone be sober around someone on shrooms?
You can, but it might be a little it's like when you're the sober person around drunk people, it can be a little much, you
Right.
just sort of like, okay, I'm gonna leave you guys to do your thing with each other. But no, I think that's like a mentality thing because like people on mushrooms can be very funny. I mean, they're definitely like, talking about like, shadows and colors and things
Right.
pulsing and the interconnectedness of the universe and
It's
outer
got to be
space and the ocean and stuff like that. So yeah, from those topics, I'll let you decide how much you want to be around
it's a
people who are
good
obsessed
half
with those
hour,
things.
maybe a long hour. I think
That's fair.
if I
That's
was
fair.
sober around that. No, because I wondered that because you talk about dating and relationships and it's in the special. Do you want to be married? Do you want to be in a relationship?
I would like to be, yeah. I feel like I would like to have kids, and I think I'm happier when I'm in a relationship with like someone and we're in love. That's great. I've also, it hasn't happened for me yet, so I have to look in the mirror as to, I've dated some incredible women, and why am I where I'm at, and what choices have I made, and like own that side of things too. But yeah, I think. I don't know. I guess I'm past the stage where I'm like, yeah, man, I gotta hook up with as many chicks as I don't know. I feel like
Right.
there's a certain age where that gets a little like, okay, what are you doing now, dude? So I'd rather be in a long-term partnership, but like, yeah, I gotta I
It is,
gotta work on the actual doing it.
I've been talking about that a lot lately. This assumption that any guy who's not married above a certain age, it was for the sex. Like it's like that's kind of like what a way to look at someone.
Yeah, that's
Like
not fair. It could be for the trauma. Okay,
right.
come on now, come on.
Yeah,
Open
right.
your mind and realize we could be damaged in a completely different way. Okay,
Right. This isn't someone that's just like, well, I don't know. I can't be locked into one. Like to think that every single guy at a certain age is like only can think of like locked into one vagina the rest of their lives is like, I don't know. Like thanks.
Well,
Thanks for how
yeah.
you view me.
Yeah, I think that might be a thing for women who are dating dudes at a certain age range where maybe there is
Sure.
truth to that. But then, yeah, I think to label every dude that way for eternity is kind of a silly thing.
Well, Matt Ruby, thank you for coming on. I want everyone to go watch the special. It is called Bolo. It's fantastic. You're going to laugh. You're going to see, I would say you're doing, a routine on the a tough routine on the balance beam. Like you
Thank you.
attack subjects that are tough that many comics wouldn't get into. It's all funny. It's all great. So everyone go watch the special. Subscribe to Matt Ruby's YouTube channel and watch it. I'm Jared Freid. We're here every Wednesday with a Chit Chat Wednesday. Back next week. Boom.